Welcome back to another episode of UFC Casuals. I'm Bobby, along with my co-host Andrew, and today we got a big fight night card to talk about, the biggest one of the year, in fact, and we got a ton of news to get everyone caught up on. We won't waste any time. We'll jump straight into the fight night. UFC Austin, the main event, Beneil Dariush and Arman Tsarukyan. What do you make of this one, Andrew?
I mean, like you said, in terms of fight nights, this is as good as it gets.
Yeah.
You might say that the main event's a little underwhelming in terms of star power, sure.
Mhm.
But stylistically, it's a great fight. It's two guys that are hungry for a win. Dariush coming off a bad loss where he thought, maybe I'm going to get a title shot. And then he loses badly to Charles. And then Arman Tsarukyan, baby, he's trying to shoot up to the top, get his Islam rematch that he so desperately has called for ever since they fought, 6 years ago now. It was a close 3-round fight. He's looking to get in that title picture. It's a big fight for both guys. And like I said, very close stylistically. I like it as a matchup. It's going to be interesting, man.
Yeah, very similar styles from both these guys. Dariush, obviously, the much older fighter in this one. But Dariush, he can hang with the best grapplers. I mean, I know it was kind of a weird situation, but, he had top control over Charles for a little bit of that fight before he ultimately got slipped. But that's besides the point. On the ground, he was holding his own. I think he's going to – me saying that, I think he's going to do well at avoiding getting subbed by Tsarukyan. I do worry about him on the feet, though, because Tsarukyan does have good stand-up. I know there was a time where he got caught in his last fight, I think against Joaquim Silva, but he ended up getting the knockout win. So he has good stand up, and he's the much younger guy. I think he's a lot quicker, so it's gonna be tough for Dariush.
Yeah, and Tsarukyan had some fights fall through right in his last couple of performances, right? Short notice replacement. It can happen. You can get caught against a solid striker like you mentioned. So, but hey, Dariush has some striking too. I know he didn't really show amazing striking in his last fight, but Charles is a different breed. So I can't hold that loss against him too much. He was on a huge win streak before that. And, you might say, hey, he's falling out of his prime. Arman's kind of entering his prime, right? You kind of feel like in terms of age. So, all signs would lead towards Tsarukyan getting a win here against an aging, contender and shooting right up into that top 5 into the title picture. But, with Dariush, man, 9-5 win streak, you never know. Or 9-5 win streak before his last performance. So you never know, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you purely look at this fight on paper and just observe their strengths and weaknesses, it's a very even fight. Very even fight, but like you mentioned with the trajectories of both of their careers, the age factor, Dariush, he does look a bit slower. He just naturally looks a bit slower. And Tsarukyan, he's quick, he's young, he's faster. I think Tsarukyan's going to get it done. And something to note, Dariush in the press conference, he did say a win over Arman wouldn't mean much for his career. Or it wouldn't do much for him. Weird quote to say. I'm not saying he's not motivated to go out there and win this fight, because if he does, he's a win away from being back in the title picture. So still a very important fight for him. But I think the trajectories both these guys are on, and I think Arman's, they're very similar fighters. I think Arman's just faster. He's younger. I just trust him more in this one.
Yeah, and momentum is a huge thing in MMA. I mean, we saw Tony Ferguson go from winning 12 straight fights to he's lost his last 6, right? So sometimes it can just take one bad loss, a knockout loss, to completely start the downward spiral of a career. And, Dariush didn't get he didn't get brutally KO'd, but it was a bad loss. He got completely outclassed on the feet. And like you mentioned, just a younger, hungrier guy in Arman Tsarukyan. Super, similar stylistic matchup. You want to give it to the younger, hungrier guy in this fight. And so my prediction, I'm going to pick Arman Tsarukyan by 3rd round sub. I think he'll wear him down on the feet early in this fight. Then he'll get to the ground. We'll get to see both their strengths utilized on the ground there. But Arman, younger, stronger probably, gets the sub in round 3.
Right. Yeah. And if you look at the win streak he put together in the lightweight division, Tsarukyan is better than those guys that he beat on that win streak. I think Tony Ferguson was the last guy he fought before Charles, if I'm not mistaken. And we saw how that win has aged, because that was early on in the downward spiral of Tony Ferguson, like you mentioned a minute ago. Sarukyan's better than a lot of those guys he beat in his rise to the top. So I think this is going to be too tough for him. I have Dariush making it. I have him making it all 25 minutes. I think it's going to be fairly one-sided, especially in the later rounds. I think, the first 3 rounds you might see some back and forth. Both guys landing good shots. There'll probably be some nice grappling exchanges where both guys look good. I think age will play a factor. I think Sarukian will be quicker. And I think those later rounds will wear on Dariush a lot more. I got Sarukian picking up a pretty convincing decision win.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Like the last thing to go is power. So,
Yeah.
Dariush has always had hands. He's always had solid boxing. So he
Sure.
could definitely catch Sarukian, who, got caught in his last fight, right? He could sleep.
I think either guy could catch either one of them. I think they'll respect each other's striking enough though, and I think we'll see a lot of big grappling exchanges in this match. I don't want to pick Dariush to get knocked out. I just don't see it happening. I think it'll go to a decision, not one sided, but convincing for Sarukian.
Yeah, like both hands, the boxing pretty similar, so that's why
Yeah.
I picked. I don't see a Charles like performance out of Sarukian all of a sudden here. So he's not going to magically spawn some amazing elite striking, but he'll show his strengths and get a sub.
I like it. I like it. Moving on to the co-main event, Jalen Turner versus Bobby Green. Jalen Turner stepping in on short notice and miraculously making weight. I'm shocked that he did. I'm truly shocked. I thought he can't make weight, with plenty of time with the full camp behind him. On a week and a half's notice, I'm mind blown that he made weight. But here we are. He did. Fights on, and yeah. What do you make of this one?
The only thought could be there were some potential matchups already being made for him, possibly.
Yeah.
And in camp, looking to get a fight anyway. So, maybe too bad of a cut for him. I hope he didn't have to cut 40 pounds in a week and a half, because that would be absurd. I would definitely not be picking him in this fight if I heard that was the case. But yeah, shout out Jalen Turner, a huge lightweight taking this fight on a week and a half's notice. Got to have some confidence to do that.
Mm-hmm.
A worthy opponent, Bobby King Green, is always game to fight anybody. As soon as his fight got canceled, he said, "I'll fight anybody."
Yep.
Two gangsters stepping in this octagon in Texas Saturday night, and
Absolutely.
it's probably going to be on the feet, and we love to see that, and it's going to be fireworks, man.
Yeah, I definitely think this fight will stay up. We did see Bobby Green pick up that submission win over Tony Ferguson, and he has got plenty of submissions in his career. But he's not the only one who has a little bit of grappling in his arsenal. I mean, Jalen Turner, he has some good offensive grappling. He has some submissions in his career. So if this fight goes to the ground, I think both the guys have opportunities to work their magic down to the ground. But I don't think this is where either guy will succeed in this fight. I think it's going to stay on the feet for the majority, if not all of the fight. But man, I think Jalen Turner, I think his striking is so much more diverse. Bobby Green, he's kind of one-dimensional with just having the boxing. But Jalen Turner, he's got that kicks. He's got that crazy range too that he can hit you from so far away. But the kicks is what separates him, I think, in this one. He'll chew up the legs, chew up the body. I think that's going to be big in this one, along with the big reach advantage that he has over Green.
Huge reach advantage, and something to go with his long legs. You were talking about Jalen Turner's got some grappling. I've been burnt talking about Jalen Turner's grappling in his last fight against Dan Hooker.
Yeah.
I'm pretty to sub Dan Hooker, right? So I'm not going to be as confident with Jalen Turner's grappling this time. I'm going to hope it doesn't go to the ground at all, because we've been burnt talking about both these guys grappling before. Sure. If this goes to the ground, Bobby Green's going to want nothing to do with Tony Ferguson's grappling, and then he subs him with an arm.
Yeah.
Right, for the first time Tony's ever been subbed, right? So, maybe we underrate, maybe we overrate sometimes, but let's hope this stays on the feet and we get some diverse, crazy striking from Jalen Turner. Those kicks to the body are going to be huge with the long leg. He's going to have the range in the boxing exchange. Bobby Green's got to make this dirty, man. He's got to get in close and use the power that we saw just a month ago against Grant Dawson, right? I mean, it wasn't even a big shot. It was like a jab almost. Knocked out. So the guy's clearly got some power. The last thing to go is power, guys. No matter how.
And, that's true. That's true. I don't want to speak too highly of Bobby Green's power, because that was truly out of nowhere. I mean, he hasn't. That's pretty rare in his career, getting a knockout like that. So I'm not going to act like he's some big knockout artist, So I don't think he's just going to go in there and chin Jalen Turner like that. I don't want to put the kiss of death on Jalen Turner here. But I don't see a repeat of that. I think maybe he can get a finish, but I don't think it'll be instantly like that. I think it'll be over the course of multiple rounds wearing down on him. But I don't think he's going to have the opportunity to do that. I think his only chance is to get inside and make it dirty, but Jalen Turner isn't going to let him do that too much. I think he's going to control the range very well, as he often does. I think he's going to do a great job controlling the range. I think he's going to pick at Bobby Green at the kicks, a lot of front kicks to the body. A lot of chewing up the leg, chewing up the lead leg, especially because Bobby Green has that boxing heavy style. You'll want to chew up that lead leg and take that away from him. I think it's going to work well. I think the kick's going to be a big part of Jalen Turner's game on Saturday night. I think he's going to go and cruise to a decision win.
There you go. Well, interesting. I do think Bobby Green's gonna be able to get in close here, just because I think he's gonna feint takedowns. I think he's gonna do a really good job of that. We've seen in like the Gamrot fight with Jalen Turner, where if you can get in close, I know you said he's usually good at keeping range, but smaller guys like this, it's gonna be tough sometimes. Just having to circle out constantly, use up your gas tank. Jalen Turner does not have a great gas tank. We saw that in the
true.
If this gets into rounds 2 and 3,
and it might be even worse if that weight cut was bad.
Exactly, a week and a half weight cut. Who knows how many pounds the man had to cut? He's 6'4". How the fuck does he make 155? So if this gets into rounds 2 and 3, we've seen Jalen Turner fade at times, and I think Bobby Green's going to do a good job feigning some takedowns early, getting inside. I don't think he finishes Jalen Turner, but I think he gets inside, uses those boxing combos. He's going to outbox him. He's going to outpoint him. And we're going to see a classic Bobby Green performance where he just throws some hands, man, and gets out of there with a probably 29-28 victory, if I had to guess. That's my prediction. Jalen Turner at that point, he'd be nearing, not, I don't want to say getting cut, but
well, he'll be having to fight someone outside of the rankings without a doubt if he loses this one.
No doubt. So it's kind of a must-win for Turner, but Bobby Green is just on a roll right now. He's gotten some good victories, and I think he's going to keep it going. Bobby Green title run loading. Let's go.
I love it. Moving on to the third to last fight on this card, we have Deiveson Figueiredo making his 135 debut finally against Rob Font. Figgy, he looked much better in those media pictures they took. He looks much more filled out, much more defined. He looks just healthier. He looks better, in better shape. With that being said, though, he's still a lot smaller than most 135ers. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, definitely needed to make this move. He is a midget.
Yep.
But, hey, there was a midget that went up and became a double champ at one point, right? So Henry Cejudo, the midget of midgets, was able to go up to 135 and have some success. So Figueiredo, I hope because, to have a quadrilogy with a guy, I feel like to only be fighting that guy for so long and then to have to move on to somebody else could be a bad thing because he was just so used to fighting one person's style. And I know I'm not saying Rob Font's going to be some matchup nightmare by any means. It's going to be straight boxing that Rob Font's looking for. But, just 4 guys, maybe, a loss of hunger. I know the title was always in play for him, so he always had that title picture. But now at a new weight class, it's going to take a while to get to the title at a new weight class like this.
Especially a weight class as stacked as bantamweight, where there's kind of a logjam up at the top.
Yeah, and now you're at a weight class where everybody's going to be bigger than you. Every stuff for him. It'll be interesting to see his mindset going into this fight, and then future fights after that. Especially if he has a tough fight against a Rob Font, who we've seen people have some great success against. I mean, we just saw Sandhagen, and I don't want to say dominate, but it was domination.
It was dominant, and he had to do it with what he was working with. Having only one arm, he did what he had to do, and he 50-45 on one arm, which was a bad display for Rob Font.
Right. So you should look at this match and be like, well, Figueiredo's going to get this to the ground easy and top control 30-27. And that's going to be my prediction. But I want to see his mindset, and going into the fight in a new weight class like this against a game opponent. I mean, Rob Font's looking to get back in the win column here, and he's going to hopefully do everything in his might to keep this on the feet. I mean, we've seen what happens when he goes to the ground. It's useless. Yeah. So
Font, he has nothing on the ground. We saw that in the Sandhagen fight, and he's at a point in his career. He's getting up there in age. Not a whole lot of room for improvement. He's not one of those younger guys who, he lost in this manner, go back and fix it. Go back to the drawing board and fix it. He's not quite at that stage of his career. He's past that. So Figueiredo should have a pretty easy time getting him to the ground. And I know he's not as big as Sandhagen, so it's going to be tougher to just hold him down like that. But Rob Font just kind of sits and lays on his back. He didn't seem to make an effort to get up. He just sits in butterfly guard. He doesn't let you advance position, but he just sits there on the ground, content where he's at, which is just it's really frustrating to watch. It's hard to watch once he goes to the ground. But once you get him there, you can kind of control him very easily. You can't really advance position on him because of that guard, which is very annoying. But you control him where he's at, and that's going to win you rounds. So I think if Figueiredo gets us to the ground, and who knows? I mean, he's got better jiu-jitsu than Corey Sandhagen. So maybe he can work past that and find his way to a submission. I don't think it'll happen. I think this fight will go to a decision. I think if it does end in the finish, I think it's going to be Font catching him, which I think Figgy, he needs to keep this, he needs to get this to the ground as soon as possible in each round. He can't spend too much time on the feet with Rob Font. I know people made jokes about Rob Font's power in the past, but after that Yanez fight, we saw what he can do if he lands a big shot. Especially against a smaller guy like Figgy. I think if Font can find his chin, it could be trouble for Figgy. But if Figgy just shoots a takedown, I think he gets him down with ease and has no problem keeping him there. So I have Figgy coasting to a decision here.
And I hope Figgy at this new weight class, is not he's gonna have a better chin. He's not trained going into these fights. I mean, I hope, this is his natural weight class, and I hope he performs his best at this weight class. And I think he is going to, because I'm banking on him being a new rejuvenated fighter, trying to go on a run here to a new weight class. And, that's what you mentioned, right? He does have better jiu-jitsu than Sandhagen, and he has two arms, we hope, unlike Sandhagen had. So I think he's going to be looking to advance position heavily. I mean, you got to get this to side control. Do not let that fucking freak get a butterfly guard on you and make this the most boring 15-minute fight of all time. I'm going to go sub just because I want to see it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go round 2 sub for Davison Figueiredo at a new weight class against a bum on the ground. He'll get it down. We'll see some BS butterfly guard for a round, but in round 2, he's going to advance position and get his back.
I like it. I'd much rather see that than 15 minutes. At least it's not 25 minutes of what we saw in the Corey Sandhagen fight. At least we'd only have to suffer through 15 minutes of it if that's how it plays out.
The one event we've ever attended in person. We
got stuck with that. Moving on, we'll talk about Sean Brady versus Kelvin Gastelum, another fighter moving weight classes, this time down. Kelvin Gastelum back down to 170. He looks good at 170 on the scales. He looked really good. He didn't look a whole lot different than he did at 185. He didn't have as much fat on him, but he looked good. He didn't look drained at all. I think it's a good move for him.
I was just gonna say he's probably stayed away from the chalupas. These Mexicans
actually had to do a little bit of weight cutting this time.
Right,
diet a little bit.
Had to diet a little bit. So desperately hates to do. Pass, but it's a good first fight, a new weight class. They were gonna get this man Shavkat Rakhmonov in his welterweight.
Thank goodness that didn't happen.
Thank God we didn't have to see a massacre. That would have been his last fight in the UFC.
Maybe
he desperately needs a win here. So it's good to give him an opponent that I think he can actually beat. And Sean Brady, who we've just seen, has absolutely no striking. You're getting jabbed up, pieced up by Bilal Muhammad. Who
I won't even hate on that loss to Bilal so much, because Bilal, look, we give him a lot of shit, but he's not getting this high in the division if he's a bad fighter. He's still a decent fighter, but it's the way he lost that was just so pitiful to me. I mean, he didn't get rocked or anything bad when he got standing TKO'd by Bilal. He ate a shot, just covered up, and just took punishment for 30 seconds. Just didn't do anything to defend himself. He didn't even get rocked. It was just he got stung with one shot, and something switched in his head where he decided to cover up, and he just gave up. And you're telling me a guy like Kelvin Gastelum, who's gotten crazy knockouts up at middleweight, like that knockout we saw in Michael Bisping. I mean, he's got serious power, and he's moving down and fighting guys smaller now. Oh, dude, I just have a bad feeling about Sean Brady in this one.
And you want to talk about people who refuse to quit or quit and then don't quit? Kelvin Gastelum's the exact opposite of how Brady looked in that Bilal fight.
Tough as nails.
Complete polar opposite in terms of quit there. So if this is going to be a dogfight like every Kelvin Gastelum fight is, we better be new Sean Brady, because if we see this same Sean Brady, he's in for rude awakening. He's getting, I don't know about slept, because you said Kelvin Gastelum, he does have power. He's gotten some big KOs, but he almost likes volume. He just likes to make you suffer. So I think he makes Sean Brady suffer here for picks him body with the boxing, the kicks. He's gonna dismantle this guy, and I mean,
I'm with you. And shockingly, I'm gonna put some money on it, but Kelvin Gastelum, he's actually underdog in this one. I guess it's because he's moving down a weight class. And I know Sean Brady, he was once a little bit hyped up because he was 14-0. He's kind of a rising prospect in the welterweight division. But looking back on his last 2 wins prior to that Bilal fight, he beat who is it? He beat Jake Matthews and Michael Chiesa. And both of those wins have aged fairly poorly. Michael Chiesa, he stinks. He's done. He's finished. And Jake Matthews, he just looks average at best. So I'm not seeing. I don't see anything from Sean Brady that stands out to me. Nothing in his game. Nothing that convinces me that he's going to have a serious advantage anywhere over Kelvin Gastelum. I think Gastelum's going to pick him apart on the feet. I think eventually in round 2 he's going to knock him out. I think that'll be it for Sean Brady. 2 straight losses.
Tom Brady, he got the added 14-0 record like these Russians like to get, right? Oh boy, Sean Brady, we have an American prospect undefeated.
Nope.
And then he's in for a rude awakening because the guy wasn't active. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure
and he hasn't fought in a year. It wasn't like he took damage in that Bilal fight
before that fight either.
Yeah.
Guy doesn't fight. I don't know if there's an injury bug, whatever his case is, for being so inactive, but that's a problem.
It is. I think he's supposed to fight JDM, but he pulled out of that fight.
He pulled out,
if I remember correctly.
He doesn't get booked.
Basel Hef has stepped up for him.
He doesn't get booked for fights, and then when he does, he pulls out.
Yeah.
So he gets hurt, whatever. So I'm shocked we've gotten to this point. We're a day away from seeing a Sean Brady fight. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, he actually has to fight. So
it's not a great matchup for him, I don't think.
Right. He's not just a potential hypeable prospect anymore. He actually has to fight.
Yeah.
And he has to fight a dog. So Kelvin Gastelum, 30-27, pieces his man, dismantles him.
I like it. Either way, same winner there. So we'll see. Moving on, we're going to talk about some big UFC news that came out over the last week or so. The biggest news of them all, Fight Night in Mexico. It's slated to be on February 24th. The fights that are in the works and most likely going to be the main and co-main event. Main event being Yair Rodriguez against Brian Ortega, their second fight. The co-main event being Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi. We'll talk about the main event real quick. Yair Rodriguez and Ortega. I don't know why Ortega is fighting up. There's no reason for it. He's lost his last 2. And I know there's a little bit of weirdness around his last fight with Yair, but it was a submission position, and his shoulder popped out of place. It counts as a fair win in my books for Yair. It isn't a fluke, I don't think. He got caught in a submission. His shoulder popped out. And either way, I think he was on his way to probably going to losing that fight. I don't think he would have beaten Yair. But however you stack it, on paper, it's 2 straight losses. He hasn't. I looked at something earlier, actually. Khabib has more of a recent win than Brian Ortega. Khabib has one. What? Why is he fighting up? There's no reason for this. And he's been inactive. And it wasn't a bad injury. He dislocated his shoulder. That's something you can pop in and your shoulder feels fine 20 minutes later. There's no reason for him to be this inactive. I don't know why he's getting a rematch. It makes no sense. He should be fighting down. He should be fighting a guy like Movsar Evloev, in my opinion. I don't know why he's getting a fight up the rankings at this point.
Diego Lopez. We could have got a Diego Lopez.
Yeah. I think it might be a little bit too high for Diego Lopez. I think Diego would actually give him a tough fight. But I wouldn't rush Diego that quick though.
No, not
Bryce Mitchell first.
Not that quickly, but if Ortega wants to sit out this long, why not sit out a little longer?
Yeah.
Let Diego. No, I'm not going to speak on the severity of Brian Ortega's injury because I don't know. There might be a tear in the shoulder.
If there was a tear in that case, then I'd take it back. Fair play for sitting out. But still.
I don't think it was just like a minor dislocation here.
Yeah.
Right? The guy's been out for 2 years, so there's definitely something bigger there, a tear or something. But and I do think the Yair loss is a bit of a fluke. I know you said he has sub position. There wasn't a sub fully locked in.
It wasn't locked in, but man, it looked like it was on the way to being. It looked like one of those like arm triangle with the arm bars in it. It was a weird position, but I think it could have been something.
I just feel like that was already an injury going into the fight, and it got aggravated from that position. I wouldn't say actual sub. It's a little flukish for me. So
okay,
I kind of don't mind running this back. I really don't. See, it's easy to say Ortega's fighting up now because Yair, went on and beat Emmett and became the interim champ. Yeah. So now he's number 2, right? He was like below Ortega when they fought. So, I wouldn't really consider this fighting up. Sure, just because Yair's been more active.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind. My point is I don't mind running this back.
All right.
Ortega's got to fight somebody, and why not the guy who he kind of had a flukish loss against? I don't mind it.
I don't know, man. Yeah, I guess if the way you painted it sounds a little bit better, but man, I'm looking at it on papers. 2 straight losses, hasn't had a win since 2020. It's like I feel like
I've been saying once I want to see Ortega get in there with like an Arnold Allen, just
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
like Brad
Arnold Allen would be a great fight.
Evloev. You said it would be a good
Well,
fight. Like
those two are matched up against each other. I would rather seen like Allen versus Yair and or Allen versus Ortega.
yeah,
So I don't know. It's confusing. Very
I don't know
confusing.
why Ortega wanted to sit out this long, but
It worked out for him though. Fair enough. Fair play to
he
Ortega. It worked out in his favor. He's getting his rematch.
he's getting a top 5 fight. He's gonna. I mean, if he wins, he's right there. So
Yeah. Very
he
true.
went away at that point from being back for the title picture. So
yeah, I think it's gonna be a tough path to victory for him because Yair is a monster on the feet. We know that, and he's so dangerous off his back. You know, I know it was in your eyes it was a little bit of a fluke, but he was threatening a position there. He was threatening it, and we saw him get submissions off his back in the Josh Emmett fight. And there's been other fights where he's
later, right? We saw the.
Yeah, he's just incredibly dangerous, both on the ground and on the feet. And I think he'd give Ortega's a ton of problems in the rematch. So it's going to be tough for Ortega, especially shaking off that ring rust and considering the trajectory of his career. He's getting a little bit older. Back-to-back losses, hasn't won since 2020. It's just a downward trajectory right now. So it's an uphill battle for him.
Lost his girl.
Yeah, that too. Lost Tracy Cortez.
Just tough period.
Hasn't been going well for him, man.
He's been in a brace and he lost his girl in a 2-year. Now he's got a fucking killer in his return fight. So
yeah,
good luck, buddy.
Good luck. Moving on to the co-main event, Brandon Moreno and Amir Albazi. Albazi coming off a very controversial win to get this fight over Kai Kara-France. We know Kai won that fight, but you know what? I don't mind it because we get a little bit of movement, a little bit of new faces in the flyweight division, and we've learned that Kai's a pussy, so I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. But Brandon Moreno, I think Brandon Moreno is going to school Albazi. Albazi lost to Kai Kara-France, and I'm not relying on MMA math here, but I think Moreno's a level above Kai Kara-France, and Kai Kara-France, I think he won 4-1 over Albazi. I don't know how they gave that decision to Albazi, but they did. I think Moreno, he's so well-rounded. I think he's going to have no problem dealing with Albazi's ground game. And when this fight is on the feet, I think he's going to absolutely piece him up. He's so far ahead of Albazi on the feet. I think it's going to be just completely lopsided. And this is a 5-round fight, which works so well in Brandon Moreno's favor because he's fought in so many title fights. This 5-round fight is going to work in his advantage. And we saw Albazi in his fight against Kai Kara-France into those later rounds started to look a little bit tired. I think this is perfect for Moreno. I think he's going to get right back in that title picture with a dominant win over Albazi here.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, just so much 5-round experience for Brandon Moreno. Been in 5-round wars. Every time the man fights in a title fight, it's electric, right? Yeah. I know did in subs or whatnot, but for the most part, this guy is a vet at this point of big time fights. And Albazi, who with a win here, is the #1 contender. So this is a huge opportunity for him, of course. But you could have argued that maybe the Kai Kara-France fight was the #1 contender fight for him. Even with a win, he didn't, it was so controversial that he doesn't get anything off of it, except a date with Brandon Moreno.
Yeah.
A 5-round dog fight in his own right. So
good luck to him on that.
Good matchmaking. Love it.
I like it. And this is a fight we've been calling for a little bit in that flyweight division. That I think winner of this fight gets a title fight. I mean, with how close that Brandon Moreno and Alexander Pantoja fight was, especially considering Moreno broke his arm, I think a rematch would have been warranted. But I understand wanting some new faces in that title picture in flyweight. It makes sense to make Moreno go back and fight a contender. But if he goes out and beats Albazi, who's there's no one else for him to beat amongst the contenders to prove himself that he deserves another title shot. If he goes out there and beats Albazi, give it to him again.
And then
whether it's Pantoja or Roybal.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a great fight. Brandon Moreno can fight any flyweight, and it's like you put him in the octagon for 5 rounds in a title fight, it's going to be electric. So, but yeah, I want to see that Pantoja rematch. Brandon Moreno, do not let us down. That was an insane fight, but good matchmaking. Love it all around. Flyweight, no superstars, but just good fights.
Yeah. Good fights. Yeah. I like it. Solid division. So both these fights, these will be on UFC Fight Night in Mexico. I think it'll be taking place in Mexico City. It's slated to be on February 24th. We'll see if that gets shifted around, but that seems like the plan for now. And it seems like those fights are deep into negotiations. So it seems like they're on their way to being booked. We'll move on to some more fights that were talked about amongst the UFC. These were leaked because of the Full Send podcast that was recorded in the planning room. They showed a board that showed a bunch of targeted fights on it, including Kevin Holland and Michael Venom, MVP Michael Venom Page, then Corey Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov being rebooked. That is targeted for the February 10th card. The Holland MVP fight, that's for the January pay-per-view up in Canada. And then Jalen Turner and Renato Moicano, that was also on there, but that probably won't happen now. I think the podcast was recorded before Turner stepped in for Dan Hooker, so that Turner Moicano fight's probably in the back of their minds now. But the other fights, Corey and Umar, I'm sure they're still working on that. Same with Holland MVP if they can get a deal done with MVP.
I mean, MVP, that's the ideal first matchup, I feel like. Just a game opponent like Holland.
Mm-hmm.
Holland, so willing to fight anybody. And there's a bag involved on a pay-per-view like that.
Yeah.
Being able to put Kevin Holland on any of your pay-per-views is an automatic win. It's going to fight. So I know he's coming off a tough loss against a kind of a boring fight, actually. It was technical, but, a lot of people found it boring.
Yeah.
This would be an opportunity to get back on the fun side of things here against a fucking weirdo like MVP. With
and we know Kevin Holland. He's not too concerned about a belt, so this is a great fight for him to take. I mean, Kevin Holland's an entertaining striker. He's got a good chin too, so it's not going to be like a flash knockout in all likelihood. We'll probably see a few rounds of these guys trading strikes in the feet, probably taunting each other, a lot of shit talk back and forth. It'd be fun. MVP throwing some crazy kicks. Kevin Holland too, with his crazy reach, throwing out some kicks, throwing some big punches, both talking shit to each other. I think it'll be fun. I think it'd be a really fun fight. Since it still hasn't been booked by now, and this was, targeted a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I wonder if it's going to be on that January pay-per-view. It might get pushed back a little bit. And that January pay-per-view is already pretty stacked. It's not a ton of star power on it, but there's a lot of depth on it. Like if this fight got on there, I think they'd be moving Arnold Allen and Movsar Evloev down to the prelims. So this is already a really deep pay-per-view. You don't need to get it on this January pay-per-view. It can be on the February one. It can be on the March one too, even. But yeah, I'd love to see this fight being made. It'd be really exciting.
You want to talk about Kevin Holland doesn't want to fight for belts. You could just have a belt for this fight.
Yeah.
Who taunt the most in a single fight?
Big mouth.
Oh my god.
B&B.
It's absolutely.
Dana, you have the blueprint.
Dana, listen to this pod, bro. The code. We just made this fight 10 times with the belt on the line. So, God, I just Michael Venom Page is getting older. Like, let's get this going. I want to see him fight some of these.
Just give him the money he wants. Let's speed up this contract negotiation. Get him in the UFC.
Before it's too late.
He probably won't make a title run, but he'll provide some excitement for sure.
Give him some good matchups. I need to see it. I need to see him in the UFC. I want to see if he'll be a weirdo like he has, because higher level.
He's got to be. The money that would come with it. I mean, the pay wouldn't be as good in the UFC as it probably would in the PFL. PFL's giving out crazy bags to anyone. But man, with MVP, he could go to the UFC. He probably wouldn't make a ton of money contract wise in the UFC compared to PFL. But the star power he'd get, the social media traction he'd get, all those benefits that would come with it would probably outweigh anything in the PFL.
Yeah, I mean that guy was a superstar in Bellator. Like you don't get.
Dude, he was viral clips every time he fought in Bellator. Imagine the platform he'd have in the UFC.
Huge. You got to get him in because he's like 40. Like he's like 39, 40. Yeah. We got to get this going, man. We got to get it going.
Yeah, speed this up. Another leaked fight, Corey Sandhagen, or another leaked fight, a targeted fight. Excuse me. None of these are confirmed. Obviously, they're still. I don't even know if they're even in the works. They were just an idea of the UFC. We don't know if MVP will even end up in the UFC. We hope so. It would be fun. It'd be exciting. And the matchup to make would be Kevin Holland. And Kevin Holland's game for that. He'll fight anybody if the money's there. Doesn't matter to him. So, but the other targeted fight that we're here to talk about, Corey Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov, is the UFC is looking to rebook that. I'm not so sure that this one will happen. I have a lot less confidence in this one happening because it was targeted for the February 10th card, which Joe Pyfer and Jack Hermanson has already been booked as the main event for that. And it's in the Apex, so they're not going to put a really good co-main on it either. This isn't. I don't think this fight's going to happen, especially because there was reports about Corey Sandhagen not being willing to rebook that Umar fight coming off the win against Rob Font. And I think Umar needs to fight someone in the rankings but lower. Like he hasn't had a win over a ranked opponent. He kind of got gifted that number 11 spot in the rankings. Have him fight a Ricky Glenn or someone who we know he'd beat, but we just want to see him beat someone ranked.
Yeah, take your time. And why would Corey ever entertain this idea?
Yeah.
He has a title shot if he just waits.
Yeah.
So why would you fight maybe the scariest contender who, hasn't even had a ranked win, right?
Yeah.
So, why even take that risk at all? If you're going to fight somebody, in the top 5 range that you haven't fought yet. I can't even think of anybody off the top of my head. But, Cejudo, anybody. Anybody would make more sense than fighting down against the scariest contender.
Yeah.
A win, what? I mean, yes, it would give you the number 1 contender shot if you beat Umar, but he has it anyway. So why even risk it?
Yeah, and apparently I don't know if Cejudo Merab is still in the works or what the deal is with that. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But if that were to happen sometime early next year, and that fight, unless there was a quick knockout, which I don't see either of those guys picking up a quick knockout over the other, or a quick submission for that matter, a quick finish in general, they're probably going to take a bit of damage from one another. So they'll probably be out of commission for a little while, leaving nobody but Sandhagen in the picture for O'Malley if he goes out there and beats Farah. Man, it makes too much sense. It makes too much sense for him to wait out. He's next in line. No point in fighting Umar. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And I think O'Malley's at a point where let's assume he beats Vera.
Yeah.
He gets to handpick his next guy. The UFC is dick riding him so hard that
he's not gonna pick Merab. He might pick Cejudo though, because of the beef there, and that's a winnable matchup for him. No way in hell he picks Merab though.
Right. No chance he picks Merab. So let's just assume, right? It's Merab's probably gonna beat Cejudo anyway. So you're talking about Sean is definitely gonna pick Corey. He just needs to wait his turn. It might not be fair that Cheeto's skipping the line. We know this.
Yeah.
We've all voiced our displeasure
Mm-hmm.
of privilege for Sean O'Malley here.
Yeah.
And Vera, but it's not Vera's fault that he's getting the fight. He's just kind of lucking into it. But
yeah,
there's some Dana White privilege. Just wait your turn, and Sean will call for you eventually. Corey, just
no need to risk it by fighting Umar. Just
no
need to.
No
need to. I want to see Corey hold that belt. I think he'd probably lose to O'Malley. I think it'd be a very competitive fight. And who knows? Maybe if Corey can mix in the wrestling, and the threat of a takedown might open up some opportunities in defeat against O'Malley. I think it'd be a very competitive fight. But I just want to see Corey get that shot again at the belt.
We would hope that Corey wouldn't sling in like a fucking retard like Aljo did.
He would do that.
Sounds much better and probably have more success in the grappling.
Yeah.
I think fight. I want to see it. Don't fuck this up, Corey, by taking a fight with a Dagestani. Why would you do that?
Yeah, let's not do that. Another leaked targeted fight by the UFC. This one's probably long forgotten, but Jalen Turner and Ronaldo Moicano was also targeted for that February 10th card. That is not going to happen now, I assume, because Turner obviously stepped in. And if he loses, he's going to be fighting as someone outside of the rankings next. If he wins, he'll probably be fighting someone other than Moicano, someone who would, push him up closer to, higher up in the rankings. So I doubt that fight means anything to the UFC now. So we won't waste any time talking about that. We'll move on to the next news we had. Robert Whitaker called out Paulo Costa, or seemed to. He posted a picture of him training, kicking a bag, tagged Paulo Costa on the bag, and Paulo Costa said he's ready to go for that fight. Costa, he had that staph infection in his elbow. I think it was staph infection in his elbow, something like that. Had to pull out of his fight against Hamzat Chimaev, but that he probably won't take too long to recover. He'll be ready to go early next year, I imagine. Whitaker, he was ready to go after that loss he had to Drickus on his podcast. He said he wanted to fight in December. Obviously, that never came to fruition, but he'll be ready to go anytime. So that fight could be made pretty soon.
Paulo Costa, man, is that guy ever gonna fight?
If they get booked, if him versus Whitaker gets booked and the fight falls through again, you have to cut him. You have no choice.
You have to, even though they just signed him to an extension. It's the fact that the whole Ikram situation happened, right? He was going to fight him in Abu Dhabi, and then he said, "No, no, 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 no. Give me the money fight instead." Right? No, it wasn't even. He wasn't going to fight Ikram in Abu Dhabi. It was going to be in the summer, right? Like on one of the good summer cards. And then he's like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm fighting Hamzat, and trust me, guys, I'm going to make a splash. I'm going to beat Hamzat. Like, fuck this Ikram guy. Why would I want to fight Ikram? I'm going to beat Hamzat." And then he doesn't even show up for that fight. Yeah. So it's like you pull out of a fight that the UFC was going to make you have, right? Like, fight down. And then you're like, no, 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 I'm going to leave if you don't give me Hamzat. They give him Hamzat. And then he, it's an injury, sure, but he pulls out. Yeah. If you're offered this fight, right? Fighting up in the rankings again.
Yeah.
Hamzat wouldn't have been fighting up, but to cancel on 2 fights like this and then to still be allowed to fight up.
Yeah.
Take it, fight him. He has a chance to win.
Yeah.
We just saw, Rob get called. Paulo called power. He could catch him.
Absolutely.
Let's see what you're made of, Paulo. Let's see if you can get back in this title picture, because you're talking a big game, but you're never fighting.
Yeah, let's see if we can get that fight in the octagon. I'll believe it when I see both of them in the octagon. I know Paulo Costa, he had a valid reason to pull out of the last fight. I mean, that elbow situation was ugly. Can't blame him. I don't think he would have been cleared anyways to go. But yeah, man, if another fight falls through, I mean, it's been too frequent. You got to cut him or you got to punish him with someone far down the rankings. And I'm not talking about like a Brendan Allen or something. I'm talking like Ikram. Rebook the Ikram fight and make it happen, or he gets cut. Something like that.
If he pulls out again, you got to cut him at that point, because he's made it clear he doesn't want to fight down. He's made it clear he Hamzat or nobody. Then he doesn't get the fucking Hamzat fight. And then, they're like, all right, we're going to let you fight up now. Take Rob, please. And then if he doesn't fight that, give me a fucking break. Cut the guy.
Yeah.
Like, what does he want at that point? What do he want?
Dude, I don't know. I don't know.
I like you. You're funny.
You've been a Paulo Costa fan for a while.
I was rooting for him against Izzy back in the day. You know, undefeated and looking like a hot prospect. Beat Yola Romero in a war.
He went on a tear through the middleweight division.
Dude, I mean,
sad to see the fall he's had.
He got drunk before his fight, and it's been downhill since then.
Yeah, that must have started his alcoholism or something. It's been the beginning of it.
On that brain of his, I don't know.
All right, well, moving on. Some more news. Khalil Roundtree versus Azamat Mirzakhanov was slated for this December 2nd fight night. I got through the pronunciation. Pat on the back to me. That was supposed to be on this UFC Austin card, but that'll be moved. Well, Azamat's pulling out. So Khalil Roundtree's been moved to the December 9th card. And Anthony Smith has the misfortune of stepping in to replace Azamat. Brutal matchup for Anthony Smith. I saw somewhere on some sports book that he opened as the favorite, actually, which if I can find that on DraftKings, I'm putting some hay on Khalil Roundtree there. Nightmare matchup for him. We know what Khalil Roundtree can do with the kicks. I mean, they're violent. And, man, Anthony Smith's legs are weak when it comes to leg kicks. He gets chewed up by them badly. We saw an Anthony Smith fight. I know he won his last fight against Ryan Spann, but Ryan Spann's also a moron. Didn't throw any leg kicks. And didn't capitalize on any good moment he had in that fight. Ryan Spann sucks. I'm not putting any stock in that win he has over him. And Anthony Smith is still finished. He's still cooked. So I think I think Khalil is going to cruise to victory in this one.
Why did he take this? I mean,
terrible.
How badly do you need money to take the worst stylistic matchup possible?
He could get such a better fight than that. He could get a much better fight.
You could get there's so many shitty 205.
And if this is the best fight you're being offered to get back in anywhere near like the top contender level of light heavyweight, man, just retire. Just call it quits. If that's the best you got.
There was like a month ago a rumor that Alex was going to call him out if he won. We've gone from that possibly fighting for the title against
fighting Khalil Roundtree on short notice. This is brutal. Terrible for Anthony Smith.
What the fuck?
As much as I don't like him, I feel a bit bad for him. I do feel a bit bad for him.
He's his
He
own
what?
worst. Took this fight.
He
Like,
what?
why is he taking this fight? He's his own worst enemy. I don't get it.
Yeah, and if this and like I said, if this is the best fight he was offered, if this is all he has to get back in the picture in light heavyweight, dude, just call it quits. You're done. You're done.
So yeah, can't wait for the preview for that fight. That's gonna be fun to.
Yeah, we'll probably go similar to the Roundtree. It won't go. I don't think it'll be as brutal as the Roundtree Chris Dawkins prediction we made. I was more certain about that. That I've never been more certain about a prediction in my life than that one. This one, I still think Anthony Smith has a glimmer of hope. Not much, but has a just a little bit.
Maybe if he can get it to the ground, but
yeah, maybe.
Chris
Dawkins said nothing.
All signs point to one leg kick annihilation.
Yeah,
he's not going to be able to move.
It look like Ian Gary, Neil Magny.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
except I think he'll probably look to finish it instead of just beating up on that leg for 3 rounds.
Oh, he's gonna knock him down on the leg kick and then immediately violently go to his fucking body with
a throw a soccer kick to the body like he always does. Oof.
He'll
break some ribs.
Something brutal, but
yeah,
horrible matchup for Anthony Smith. I feel bad.
Yeah, and the last bit of UFC news we have: Bobby Green and Arman Tsarukyan. Arman Tsarukyan, he's a pussy, by the way. Let me make that very clear. Him and his crew went up and started to press Bobby Green. Bobby Green stood his own. He didn't back down. He told him he wasn't taking shit from him. They shoved each other, and that was about it. And then Bobby Green and one of Arman Tsarukyan's buddies, they got into a fight later on. Bobby Green went back. He caught back up to him and decided to scrap with him then and there. And Arman Tsarukyan's friend dipped. He ran. He wasn't ready for that. Just a little bit of beef going on during the fight week. And I'm just saying, if Arman Tsarukyan, and this completely contradicts my predictions, so don't, I'm not expecting this. But if Arman Tsarukyan were to lose and Bobby Green were to win, there's a matchup to be made there. That's a perfect matchup to be made. Obviously, Tsarukyan would probably have to fight down, especially considering he lost to Gamrot pretty recently, lost to Dariush in this instance. He'd be fighting down. Bobby Green would be on an upward trajectory, looking to fight someone around that spot in the rankings. And there's a lot of bad blood now between the two. So part of me, this would make my predictions look like shit, but part of me wants this to happen so we can see these two fight.
But part of me also feels like we're gonna get like a Topuria Paddy Pimblett situation where Tsarukyan's like actually a talented prospect and is gonna go places, and then Bobby Green's kind of just like mid-tier, probably gonna lose Saturday.
Yeah,
it's gonna end up being like that where like there's levels to this shit, and Tsarukyan is never going to worry about Bobby Green again.
Yeah, Bobby
Green's never going to be able to get to a level where he can fight Tsarukyan in the UFC. They can street fight. I mean, hey,
yeah. I think it was because Bobby Green said he was boring and a fucking bum, to quote him. I believe those were the words that Bobby Green said. Don't quote me on that. It was something along those lines. I might not be saying it for verbatim, but something like that out of Bobby Green. So that's what prompted that.
I don't disagree on the boring part, but
fair enough.
Hey,
still lame with Tsarukyan to surround him with his crew of like 5 or 6 people while Bobby Green's just sitting alone.
I was gonna say, if Tsarukyan listens to this and hears me also say that, and he wants to pull up on me with his 5 Armenian rats, then be my guest, buddy.
Bring it.
You're a pussy, and I will call the authorities on you.
I'm with Bobby Green. You're a fucking bum. Come get me too.
Woo!
We want this. I want this lawsuit.
Jesus Christ!
I hope he didn't see this far because now he knows my plans.
Yeah, I hope nobody watches this far because I'm scared.
I doubt they are. But if you are watching this far, that's about all we have for this episode. If you somehow watch this far, please drop a like. Maybe drop us a subscription if you feel like it. We will see you guys next week.
See you guys.